Hey, I'm Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, in celebration of International Guitar Month, Pete Townsend of The Who will join us.
Pete went deep with us into his relationship with the guitar and with music in general, the new Broadway version of Tommy. He clarified the status and the future of The Who, and much, much more.
Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What's up, y'all? This is Tim Einenkel with The Library. Make sure to follow me on Twitter. That's at The Library with Tim. That's at The Library with Tim. Also, check me out on rapstation.com for my full interviews and also updates from all the And You Don't Stop crew.
I wish you were real instead of made believe.
Yeah. Where everything's fair, people live without care, unless it's coupled with health. We will all share the wealth, where our planet won't melt. Don't like the hand you were dealt. It's no
This week on The Library is part one of my interview with hip-hop artist Substantial on his album, Home is Where the Heart Is.
So I know you probably get asked this a lot, but I kind of want our audience to have a better understanding of who you are.
Okay.
So who is Substantial?
Substantial is a father, husband, MC, visual artist, educator. You know what I mean? Just basically just a person about peace, man, and just trying to push my people and my craft as far as possible.
True. And your latest album, which was released in September 2012, Home is Where the Heart Is.
Right.
Kind of wanted, if you could talk, like, what's the concept behind the album and why the title?
Yeah. So Home is Where the Art Is. The concept behind it, basically, while I was living in Baltimore, man, I was like really inspired by a lot of my experiences there. Also inspired by the art, like, of the city. Like, if you've ever been to Baltimore, they have these huge murals like all around the city, man, and it's beautiful. And so it's just constantly, like, in the backdrop as you're living your day to day. So it's like, when you think of the saying, art imitates life, it's like that comes to mind heavily when I'm riding around. So it's like I'm seeing these positive images or whatever in these places where the community is kind of, it's kind of the polar opposite of that. But it's like somebody still took the time to put something beautiful there to hopefully inspire somebody. So, I don't know how it influenced other people, but basically, this project is kind of what those images did for me and what my experiences there, all, basically what it came out as,
True. Well, I mean, was it some sort of, I guess I was wondering, was it also some sort of reaction to, I guess, the perceived notion of what Baltimore is like, or, like, you talk to people and they're like, I wouldn't, I would only go in these 2 blocks or whatnot,
Right, yeah, it definitely has a reputation, man. I just remember, like, traveling, whether, like, I'm in Chicago or whether I was, like, in Europe somewhere, and people were like, hey, where you from, bro? And I'm like, from Maryland. I currently live, I live in Baltimore. And, like, and people, man, just like, oh, my God, how's that? Like, because most people knew was, The Wire. That was pretty much it.
Right.
And, and then, like, some people I talked to had actually lived there for a while, and so, they might have had some rough experiences there. But for me, growing up in Maryland, in PG County to be specific, Baltimore, when I was growing up, it had its rough parts or whatever, but for me it was kind of like a getaway. Because when I stayed in PG, wasn't exactly sweet either. And for me it was a getaway because I get to see the other side of the family, man, and it was just a different experience. So, I still got a lot of love for B-More, man. It's a great place,
Nice. A lot of the artists on the on Home is Where the Artists are from the DC, VA, Maryland area.
Right.
So I'm wondering, obviously the album is kind of a tribute to that area, but with the age of the internet and the turnaround time, you talk to artists and they're like, I emailed a beat to so and so who lives in California, and he emailed me back another beat.
Right.
I guess if you could elaborate more, why continue to stay local with the artist? Like, why not? I don't know, reach across the pond or something like that.
Well, I mean, I definitely, like, as a hip-hop, as someone who loves hip-hop, you're obviously influenced by, your, not just your environment, but the global hip-hop community. But, but the people who really kind of pushed me day to day to push my craft to the next level were people who were home with me. You know what I mean? Like, I used to tell people all the time when I first moved to Brooklyn or whatever back in the day that, like, man, like, as dope as some of these artists around me in New York were, I was like, man, y'all really got to hear my dudes back home, man. It's nice. Like, because people just really didn't know how much talent was in the Maryland, D.C., Virginia area. They're starting to get an idea now. But back in the day, they had no clue, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so whenever I do my projects, man, however I could showcase that, I definitely try to do it. But at the same time, I've worked with artists all around the world. My first album was completely produced by Japanese producers. My second album had production from people from, like, Finland and other parts of the country here. And even this album has 2 tracks from M. Phases, which is, he's arguably one of the biggest hip-hop producers out of Australia.
Right.
So I'm still with the international community too, man, building with them and trying to put out dope music with them. But, I'm always going to remain loyal to my hometown, man, and try to promote the art here as much as possible,
I actually want to talk about your I guess your inspiration process, to your creative process. Is it easier for you to, not just this album, but any album, is it easier, or any song, is it easier for you to kind of have a concept, write the lyrics, and then talk to the producer about the beat, or is it easier to have the beat first? What works for you? I mean, or I imagine it's probably different on every track, huh?
When I was younger, when I first started writing, it was easier for me to just kind of come up with the idea beforehand. Where now it's more about the music or whatever. Like, I try to be like, work as much as like a musician as possible. And basically what I do is I vibe out, I find some music or whatever that I really like, and I spend as much time just listening to it, trying to approach it as an actual musician, as opposed to like, I'm gonna write these dope lyrics, I'm gonna write this crazy rhyme, you know what I'm saying, punchline, et cetera, et cetera. It's really like, how can I do something that I feel really illustrates, via words, really illustrates what I hear in this music. And then, like, how can I use my voice like an instrument to complement what's happening, so that way I make a great song, as opposed to just a dope rhyme. So that's really my approach nowadays. You know what I mean? When I was younger, I was way more aggressive with it, like, like chip on my shoulder, hands up to prove. I was trying to be the best battle rapper alive. Where now it's like, I'm really just trying to be a great musician, man, and make timeless music, whether I'm rhyming or not,
Cool. I want to go back to Home Is Where the Art Is. What is your, I guess, 2 questions. What's the most personal song on the album for you? And then it could be the same thing, but what's your favorite song on the album?
The most personal song for me would be Umoja.
I ain't even gotta know you to show you love, cause nowadays complete strangers could be your blood. So I treat everybody like a cuz on GP until your attitude switch from love to bleak me. Everybody
basically, it's because the first verse is me just building, like, talking about my relationship with my wife, and the importance that's played, and like everything I do. And then the second verse talks about my family, and our relationship and everything. And then the third and final verse talks about, like, basically, like, my work in the community and, like, just trying to give back and deal with people out here to better our surroundings. So that track right there is easily the most personal track on the record, because it's basically dealing with my idea of, if I'm going to go out here and try to unify people or, like, make things better, like, it starts at home. Like, I have to start with, like, basically making sure my home or whatever, my relationship with my wife and my child is as great as it possibly can be, you know what I mean? So I can be an example for these same people I'm reaching out to. And then just, talking about my influence my family has on that, and how before I'm trying to inspire the world, you know, it's like I got to try to basically lift up the people closest to me. And, you know, and so that's really what that song was trying to capture. So definitely a personal record. As far as my favorite, I mean, it changes, man. Like 1 week it might be this song, and next week it might be that. But I would say the song that was probably the most fun for me to write, oh man, like I would probably say it would have to be Check My Resume.
Nice.
And it's really just because I like coming up with challenges. Like, how can I do a song that keeps with the tradition of hip-hop and it's trash talk, but at the same time be a unique concept, or something that someone hasn't really heard, and so that way it still has some substance, you know?
Right.
Let's go. Yeah, yo. Name substantial, address Nunyon. Baltimore resident, but people know I'm from the county where the prince is a G. It's the wonder that even in the dead of winter, the block is live in summer where dudes got.
And that was a fun song to write, man. Like really kind of taking my career or whatever and breaking it down in resume form, but via rhymes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just had a lot of fun with that. And Odyssey, you know, Body the Beat, man, just really did its thing. So, you know, it was a lot of fun to write to and listen to, at least for me.
That was part 1 of my interview with Substantial. Tune in next week for part 2. Peace.
These groceries and keep the fam eating. I keep the fans fiending and hit them with the potency of a pressure. No dope, see you know spin speak for these other guys, but you can check my resume, man. I'm qualified. Why would I lie, bro? Nobody is precious. This shit, man. Check my references. Can't speak for these other guys, but you can check my resume, man. I'm certified. You can put them high up. Nobody is precious. This shit, man. Check my references. I should be your first pick long before the second interview. Third LP's a 4 out of 5 minimum. Even with short pockets, stood taller than a sentinel. Driver's uncanny, not your average individual. Think I graduated from the Xavier Institute, but school of hard knocks, where I took my classes, where I got my master of ceremony tactics. My poor righteous teachers taught me to make only classics. You may know me as this educator and a vocalist. Who the hell you know's a team player and a soloist? Can dress to impress, but I'm fly when I'm playing. Too thorough. If I quit, you would hire me again. So fire him if he lame. I come for what's mine. Work around the clock so I can keep up with the time. Since elementary, I flipped the dub from a dime. While they get the pink slip, I get the dub for you 9. Yo, can't speak for these other guys, but you can check my resume, man. I'm qualified. Why would I lie, bro? Nobody is precious. This shit, man. Check my references. Can't speak for these other guys, but you can check my resume, man. I'm certified. You can put them high up. Nobody is precious. This shit, man. I'm the man for the job, while these slackers do jobs for the man, knowing that it blows. Sometimes it's involved in their hands. They got really don't you want a person with integrity, setting goals, tailored for success? You can measure me on my accolades and my skill in the field of rhyme. Future so bright, man, for real, have you feeling blind? Plotting chart, topping while I chill, and I'm killing time. Skills getting better, but they still ain't as ill as mine. Don't take my word, it's some references to check up with. You can call the cards, you wait, you is who they represent. Holla at Artie, make the beat that I meddle with. A tone and pack FM because my fam is still extended. Trick, call my peeps, Marcus D. If you want that better shit, me and my brethren stick together like a parrot. This call Kool Herc and Busy B. I ain't arrogant, but here's a quick reminder just in case it still ain't evident. Yo, can't speak for these other guys, but you can check my resume, man. I'm qualified. Why would I lie, bro? Nobody is precious. This shit, man. Check my references. Can't speak for these other guys, but you can check my resume, man. I'm certified. You can put them high up. Nobody is precious. This shit, man. Check my references. Check my references. Check my references.
Hey, I'm Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, in celebration of International Guitar Month, Pete Townsend of The Who will join us.
Pete went deep with us into his relationship with the guitar and with music in general, the new Broadway version of Tommy. He clarified the status and the future of The Who, and much, much more.
Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.